Hi, I'm Bailey from My Math Experts, and today I'm going to help you solve the following problem. What number is added to both sides of this equation to solve it by completing the square? So first of all, what's even the goal of completing the square? The goal of completing the square is to eventually factor this thing into a factor that is squared. So for example, maybe this factors to x minus 4 squared or something like that. The problem is if we look at the way that it's set up right now, we can't factor it in that way, right? Because if we look at factoring this kind of in a standard way, we would be thinking like what two numbers multiply to 3 and add to -8. And there's not two numbers that do that because the only factors of 3 are either 3 and 1 or -3 and -1, and neither of those pairs add to -8. So we're going to need to change our problem in some way so that we are able to factor into a factor that is squared. So the formula to do this is if we have something in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the formula for this, for what we're going to add to both sides here, is b over 2 squared. So in our situation here, our b term is -8. So this for us is going to be -8 over 2 squared, which is then going to be -4 squared, which is then going to turn into positive 16. So keep this calculation handy because there's actually going to be another use for it. So I'm going to just put this over here so we can look at it later. For the purposes of this problem, we're done because it just says what's the number is added to both sides to solve it by completing the square. We just figured it out. We just did this formula. It was 16. That's pretty easy. But I want to actually walk you through the rest of this problem as well, because there's some interesting stuff that happens here that I want us to check out. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 3. I'm actually going to do our plus 16 first and then do plus 3. And then, of course, whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we're also going to add a 16 over here. And now this perfect little triplet that we have set up, we're just going to ignore the plus 3. But this perfect little triplet should be able to be factored into something that is squared. And the reason that you want to usually keep this calculation handy is because you could think to yourself, okay, what two numbers multiply to 16 and add to -8, and go through that whole thought process. But this formula actually solves it for you. Whatever is on the inside of these parentheses before you square it is actually going to be what your factor is. So you can just automatically say, oh, hey, this is going to be -4. This is going to factor to x minus 4 squared plus 3 equals 16. And then, of course, you can always check this by multiplying it back out. We can multiply x minus 4 times x minus 4, x squared minus 4x plus 16. That's x squared minus 8x plus 16. So that verifies that that's the correct way to factor it. And then from here, let's say the question was asking us to solve for x. So this shows why getting it into this form is actually helpful. It makes it a little bit easier to solve for x. So let's do it. Well, first thing we're going to want to do is subtract 3 here on both sides. So that's going to be x minus 4 squared equals 13. And then we're going to have to cancel out this square that we've created. So the inverse operation to squaring something is square rooting. So we're going to square root both sides. And we're just going to get x minus 4 equals, and then something really important to note here, whenever you square root both sides in an equation, you actually get two answers. You get either positive root 13 or negative root 13, plus or minus. So keep that in mind. People forget that a lot. And then, of course, to get x by itself from here, we're just going to add 4 to that, plus 4. And those are our two x values. So let me kind of write that out a little bit more explicitly here. So our two x values are either x equals positive root 13 plus 4 and x equals negative root 13 plus 4. Those are our two x values that are going to make this equation true. And then, of course, if you have a calculator, you can double check that these work by plugging them back into the original and verifying that when you plug both of these in separately, that you do get 0 equals 0 as a solution. I'm not going to do that here just for the sake of time, but you could do that to check your answers if you want. So yeah, that's completing the square. Usually the reason that they make you do that is either to convert your standard quadratic equation into vertex form, or to make it a little bit easier to solve for x without having to go to the quadratic formula. So yeah, good tool to have in your arsenal. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for hanging around for this one. See you next time. Bye.